Hey, I'm Dan with Infinite Lives, and I'm talking to Jack.
Hi, how you doing?
We're looking at Brigador.
Brigador.
So tell me about Brigador. I played it a little bit. It looks pretty cool.
Brigador is a isometric action game, a vehicle action game, where you get to pick different vehicles, so you get to pick a different loadout, and you are in a fully destructive environment. So that was a big thing for us. And the other thing, so he's giving a little bit of demo here. When you're playing Brigador, you can go after the enemies. You can go after some of these infrastructure objectives. But the point is, we want to support players being able to play the game their own way and try out a lot of different options. So we have over 40 playable vehicles for the complete game.
So when I played this game, the first thing that came to mind was the strike games, Jungle Strike, Desert Strike, Urban Strike. Was that something that kind of influenced the making of this?
Believe it or not, we never played the strike games. The best part about hearing the sentence, you know, it reminds me of, is that there's this awesome set of games that when we were growing up, we played a lot of the classic 90s games, but there's a ton of these games that we never played, but actually do resemble our game, because it turns out when you make an isometric action game, there are certain problems you have to solve. And thankfully, we seem like we're in good company, because we checked out those games that people say it reminds them of, and they're pretty great games. So
you know, that begs the question: what influenced the making of this game? Is it Mech Warrior?
Mech Warrior is a huge influence. A lot of John Carpenter. You know, these really like moody tones, night lighting. I mean, 80s is a big thing right now, but we're not trying to be consciously retro about it, insofar as we're trying to just be expedient. You know, as a four-man team, indies, it's tough to make a game that looks great without spending a lot of money or having a huge art team. I made all the art myself, so the idea of being able to render it out instead of having it runtime 3D, because there's, you know, you have to texture map them, you got to rig them for animation, there's a ton of work you have to do, and by rendering them out as sprites meant that I could do a lot of that, or I could avoid a lot of that, actually. So this is how we ended up. We came together and figured out some ways that we could do a sprite game. Like, actually, one of the nicest things we heard from someone is a YouTube comment. They said, this looks like a 90s game that was made 20 years later with today's technology. And that's kind of what we were going for. We like sprites. We think there are some really nice things about them that you lose with real 3D. But it's a little sort of a best of both worlds, right? You know, old sprites, but high resolution.
So
frames per second.
So why was it important to get the destructibility in there? Like, I mean, I like it. I like the destructibility, but why was that a key goal for you?
I think it's just one of those holy grails for design. Well, I mean, I know fans. I know as a player, I like destructibility, but it's a question about when you come up with games that have destructibility, at some level they're going to cheat, right? It's going to say, well, it's destructible, except for, you know, when the indestructible walls show up or whatever. So when we realized this is about big vehicles, huge destruction, oh, you know what? If we want to really be truthful about that, maybe we need to invest in making sure destruction has worked. And if we're going to go a little bit, might as well go all the way. And so it's been really fascinating to look at how level design changes when you can Kool-Aid Man through every single wall. So part of the way we solve those is that there's like mud, there are other things that will slow you down. There's a gradation of like these hedges are paper thin, but they're concrete walls that, depending on the unit that you have, you may or may not be able to get through. So you're an 8-foot power suit, suddenly you can't make it through that wall, but if you picked your 40-foot mech, you stomp right through, no problem. So we wanted to create, the destruction element means that depending upon one of the many vehicles you pick, you're choosing a very different experience. And I think the destruction helps, the total level destruction helps enable that in a lot of ways. And it's really satisfying, we seem, as a player, when you end up in a big firefight and then suddenly there's nothing to hide around anymore. It's not just the Matrix lobby, right? We know Matrix lobby columns. It's the whole level.
So, You're saying that what is it? 45 vehicles in the game or something?
That's our current total. We need to polish them. They're not going to be. There'll be about 15 for early access in October 20th. But as we'll basically be. I don't know if you played Darkest Dungeon.
Yes, I like that game.
So I was unfortunately a cheapskate, and I only backed it at the level where I got a copy, but not an early copy, which is probably good because I have to work on my own game. But if you notice, they've rolled out these sort of like internal DLC kind of style updates to the game, even though it's in early access. We really like that, and because we have so much content, we want to make sure it's polished, and we want to get the input from the players. So when they get their, we'll have more of these. We're first 15 units, and then we're gonna roll out the small units. We're gonna roll out the super heavy units, the different tanks, the hovercraft, different style of mech. There's hopefully something for everybody.
So I mean, this might be a deeper question, just just a on-floor interview, but like you have 45 vehicles, or you're going to get to 45 vehicles, all polished and everything like that. How do you manage like balancing the game there? So like like one vehicle isn't just so much better than the others, and kind of like it's a push and pull. Like some are more maneuverable, but they might be weaker or something like that. Like
absolutely. Well, along a couple of different bounds. Destructibility is one of them, like we talked about. If you're a giant mech, you have basically ability to do damage inherently, but there's also everywhere in the game, even though it's a 2D game, there is a proper height values for everything. So like they will do spot checks, like they can see. How did they see me? Oh, you're a giant mech. You're towering over things.
Especially after you flatten the whole neighborhood.
Yeah. So it's fascinating because even though most of the maps tend to be more urban like this, we built a farm map. Actually, my brother built a farm map where suddenly being a giant mech isn't actually a good thing because everyone can see you and they all just come to the party and be like, well, I want to kill that guy because he's the only thing around for miles. So that's one of the ways you balance it. Sort of high profile, low profile. That's a big deal. There are some stealth elements. You can do sound. So again, like this guy is just is loud, heavy, like aggro style. But we play with different ones where some can be sleeker, still loud, but low profile. Some are just small and fast. You just keep going along. Part of it was building up enough sort of aspects. Like you see here, we have armor, and then there's the blue bar is the shields, and then the light blue bar is overcharge. So if you're like Wolfenstein New Order, right? You can pick up, and it decays down from a certain value. We like that idea just generally, and what's cool is there are some units that have great armor, bad shields, but great overcharge. So what you can do, it's like playing as a shark, right? You have to keep moving. You keep killing, and you keep stacking up. You're fine because you're just barreling forward. But you got to keep that overcharge up because otherwise it'll decay. So whereas other people want to take it quiet, slow, and make sure they're hidden, behind things, they can do that too. So that was part of the balance. It's like rather than, obviously a single player game, balance is a weird idea. We approached it more from the idea of how are people going to want to play this game? So the Mech Warrior fantasy is obviously huge, and that was the most immediate one. This is one of the first units completed for the game. It's like, I'm going to go stomping through everything, and it's going to be awesome. But then we started looking at, well, what are other ways you can play the game? And one way we knew we were onto something is that the more people that played the game, the more different opinions we heard about what were the best units. So both coders say, why would you play anything other than a tank? The tank is the best. And I'm a mech player, and we have a bunch of guys that love the hovercraft because they're shmup players. They love maneuverability over anything else. So that's what it's been for us. It's been awesome to see different people see what they want out of a game in our game.
So I feel like part of the Brigador's appeal, or at least one of the things that you guys are trying to do, is make a game that's challenging, right?
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, no, that's totally fair to say.
So how do you kind of manage, I don't know, expectations, or even like a player who's walking up and obviously has never played your game but wants to try it out, but you kind of have to you're in that fine line. Like, you know, it's difficult. It's supposed to be difficult, but we also want people to have kind of a good first impression of it.
No, it's a good question. If anything, the difficulty that we've seen the most with is just people just having trouble with getting over the tank controls, you know? So, but in our experience, it's only 5 or 10 minutes to really kind of start to get your head around it. So it's like, that's like, if you're not gonna give our game 5 to 10 minutes anyway, like, I don't know what we can do for you.
Fair enough.
You know, if there's not the appeal there. But difficulty, I don't know. I guess one of the things is with games, it's down to opportunity costs. You know, there are games where if you die and you have to go through the full like reload sequence, it's like those kind of games I tend to just quit because it's like I ain't got the time. I'm just cold. I'm just cut cold. So, you know, coding our own engine, it runs fast, and in the demo circuit, it's been really great too because even if someone kind of catches a bad break their first playthrough, we just hit enter key enough times, so we're right back in the game with the same loadout you just tried. So you don't have to retool, you're right back in the game and you're playing again. And so it loads fast, and like that counts for people, you know, and especially when, so I think that's an important part of the difficulty equation is if you got punished and then had to sit through a loading screen, that's a totally other ball game.
So Steam Early Access,
yep.
October 20th.
October 20th. After everyone gets over their Metal Gear Solid hangover, there's a game to play before Fallout 4 comes out.
Very true. And XCOM 2 is delayed, so it's all right.
Yeah. Sorry, guys.
So what, is it only on Steam? Are you looking at any other platforms?
We're in talks with Sony, but PC, we're PC gamers first and foremost, so we want to make sure that this game gets finished as best we can, and then makes it out of early access. We're looking at PS4. We're looking for controller support as well for our PC players. It's on Humble Bundle. It's on Steam. Anything else is yet to be determined.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. The game looks really great.
Cheers.